Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Art family.
Hello there, welcome back.
She's laughing. Okay, so if you hear any weird noises, it's probably Sassy chewing on a little bit of a bone here.
Or Zeke is licking himself in the background.
You know, it's like just when we go to make a video, they got to get all noisy. And then I said to Sass, don't walk and knock over that power cord. So what does she do?
She turns around and goes right back again.
And does it again, yes. So I thought this was really very apropos, so to speak. And this is from Zero Hedge. Exactly which dystopian novel are we living in? Turns out, in a way, we're living in all of them. Whether we're talking 1984 Soylent Green.
Oh, God.
Say it.
Can it?
Say it.
Soylent Green is people.
And we've wondered what is that on the shelves next to the ground beef? You know, that new plant-based sort of
What
material.
is that? What's in that spam? Really?
Yeah, you know, Lord of the Flies, Logan's Run. You remember Logan's Run? You know, where people, I think was at age 30, had to go take part in a ceremony.
Yep.
Yeah, they make it like a big festival, like Festivus for the rest of us.
Yeah, so they glorify it.
Yeah, and then, okay.
Yeah.
And we got Fahrenheit 451, Clockwork Orange, Animal Farm. Yeah, it's true. We got, obviously, The Matrix. There's a new Matrix movie out this week.
Yes.
Too, you know, which I guess the reviews aren't so good, but that doesn't ever seem to make a difference.
I heard that reviews were bad with, what's that one where... Gosh, I can't remember the name of it now, but I heard they were bad reviews, and then I watched it, and it was the best show. It made so much sense to me. I'll remember later, you guys. Sorry.
You know, you could almost kind of go in verse because, again, most people are in the system. Most people are totally asleep. And, yeah, this is what we're alluding to when we're talking about zombie apocalypses. It's the fact that so many people are going on in kind of a mindless way, not questioning what's going on around them, not really recognizing what's going on around them. They're kind of asleep. They're kind of zombified. And, you know, we have all the references to that, and it does kind of feel like we might be living in a Walking Dead scenario at times as well.
Right. It was Avatar. Sorry. Okay, I'm done.
Well, Avatar was. And, you know, it's interesting. Isn't it fascinating how they've pushed back Avatar's release? It seems. I mean, it's the biggest movie of all time. And how often do you see follow-ups come, you know, within a couple of years? Mm-hmm. And we're talking over a decade, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of weird, don't you think? Mm-hmm. They're waiting for certain things to take place before, you know, they want anything else triggering in our minds and waking us up. They don't want us waking up. Again, they want us to be mindless zombies. Mm-hmm. Useless eaters, so to speak.
Yes. So
here we see Putin and Xi running circles around number 46's hybrid war. And there was a comment as to, is number 46 really number 46? Because if you go look up on a certain wall, there's supposedly no picture there. There's always these things. Well, you know, we had 1800, the last president. You know, we had talked about that book when 45 was around, and you know, a certain baron's adventures and in the inner earth and all this stuff. And you know, it's just wild that we really do feel like we're living in a movie or in a dystopian novel. And here we can see what's going on. This word hybrid warfare. Russia and China's announcement of independent financial trading platform will free nations under U.S. sanctions from Western intrusion and into their commercial activities. And, you know, we talked about BRICS. We talked about all these things that are going on that would have to go on. And we've been talking about this since 2017 when the channel started, that there's a disentanglement that has to happen before the actual conflict could happen. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. And, you know, it's kind of ominous, but at the same time, we know it is part of a script that we're seeing ourselves going through. And, it seems like 2022, as, they're calling out that year 2022, diplomatic sources off the record confirmed the structure may be announced by a joint summit before the end of 2022. There's going to be such a breakup on so many different levels. And it does have to happen. There has to be a breakup. We know that the power structure is the extremely few, in reality, controlling the many.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even close numerically. So they have to control it through these power structures. So, in one sense, the breakup can be very, very destructive, but at the same time, it really does have to happen. And, when we're talking about the Pluto return, which we've been talking about, the restructuring, what will the United States look like? Will there even be a United States? Is there just going to be 3, 4, or 5 different zones that are under the influence of other entities?
Right. These are things that we have to look at, because there's certain things coming up to be introduced into law that we would think in this country, how did we get to this place? How could this ever happen? You read some of these things that are being talked about in legislation to be put into law, and you think, where do I live? Really? I mean,
well, where do you live? If you live in New York, and we're not going to really say much on this, we're just leaving the headline up there. You might want to think to head to different pastures, or make sure that you're speaking up. If you want to stay in that place, then you're going to have to speak up, and you're going to have to find others to speak up with you. You're going to have to find some solidarity. Or like the California town that said it's its own new entity. We don't recognize, the governance of California anymore, this one particular town. And we need to do that, say, hey, I don't
know that person.
I don't recognize, the authority that is supposedly above us, because it doesn't feel like it's, its intended purpose, which, governance should be, as far as what this country's been founded on, for the people, by the people. It ain't the case. So, in one sense, people need to say, well, we're not going along with this anymore. Because when we talk about who does number 2 work for?
I know.
Well, who does the governance work for? And many are waking up and realizing, well, it's not us. It's not the people. It's not the masses. Interesting, we see, there was a cyber attack down in Brazil. And in many ways, Brazil has been called by some the United States of South America, in that it's a very large nation, very potentially powerful nation with great economic resources, diversity going on. And, was part of the BRICS as well, that alternative economic system which has been developing. And so all this data, which has to do with response to the plague upon the land, is gone. And that's curious. Isn't that not? I mean, there's a lot of things that are curious, like the harassment of Navy destroyers by that mysterious drone swarms that happened for weeks back in 2019. And they don't know whose they were. They don't know if it was fine dining ware. They don't know if it was Russia. They don't know if it was even of this particular world, when you get down to it. And this is from the Drive and the War Zone, just going over, as more things get released, the more mysterious these things are. But boy, there are so many mysteries in this world that have been totally covered up. And when it comes to the point where people are finally waking up and finally refusing to go along with the system, then it'll be basically the few will rely on the drones and the robots and the technology. That's when we really see stuff that might make the pit of our stomach drop.
Well, this is the time where we're hitting this curve where humans are evolving and starting to understand how important our heart chakras are, how important our emotions are, and how much we are actually one being, you know, functioning as one. So it just seems really strange upon the recognition of this that they have to bring out these other entities that will act opposite that.
Yeah, and I was getting a lot of wild stuff from the guides this morning. Visions of technologies that can make entire islands disappear. Where you might be, either going along in a plane above, and then, something blinks in, something blinks out. There's technology out there that's mind-blowing. And when we get deeper into this period, you're going to start to see what's really out there. And as it falls apart for the controlling powers, then they will be showing us more and more technology that really exists. And truly, you might as well recognize that it's non-terrestrial technology that we're going to be seeing at some point. This headline shows that UN talks fail to open negotiations on killer robots, quote unquote. As we've heard about the Russian robots, we've seen, the ones that we have here. We've shared that when we were leaving Nevada, for the last time, and we saw 4 massive, those robot dogs that you see, those DARPA, Boston Dynamics dogs, that usually we see them and they're like 2 feet, maybe 3 feet long, and 18, 24 inches tall. These were the size of tanks. And they were on, basically a 53-foot trailer. And they were, I guess, going to or from the Nevada test site. But it was shocking. And I wish, we were on the highway in tons of traffic with our trailer, and, I couldn't get off to the side or go loop around quick enough because, man, I wanted to get video of that for you guys. That was mind-blowing to see.
It's almost like they made those things to be very intimidating on purpose.
This is exactly what's coming out, and the technology is already there. It's all already there. And it's going to be kind of shocking to see. Completely unexpected Martian volcanic discovery. Really? Well, it just said that there's a canyon many times larger than the Grand Canyon that seems to have a lot of water underneath it, and the Perseverance rover is driving on lava flows, not sedimentary rock. And there is other spots in here that are very interesting too. The rocks that Perseverance has sampled so far also revealed that they interacted with water multiple times, and some of them include organic molecules. Now, doesn't that mean organic molecules? Mars. Don't we have life on Mars then? I mean, wasn't life on Mars?
Just say it.
Isn't that what that says?
Right? Just say it.
Say it. Say it.
Say it.
Just say it.
I know.
Disclosure. Disclosure. No, we're not alone. No, we've never been alone. They just want you to have this thought because, the controlling entities are not Homo sapiens. They've never been Homo sapiens. Can you say we live on an alien ant farm?
We do.
In a way, we do. And we see UFOs crippled 10 of my NUKE missiles at top secret U.S. Air Base, claims ex-NASA moon landing engineer, a former NUKE missile base boss who later developed backpacks for NASA Apollo astronauts, has claimed the UFO crippled 10 of his NUKESs in their silos. This is former retired Captain David D. Schendel. And, this happened back in 1966. There's been so many of these different incidences. And we see some mysterious ingredient maybe causing the universe to expand faster than it should. And all this points to the fact that as much as they want to flaunt their science, what they give us doesn't add up. And it's constantly revised. So, in my opinion, they can take their science and stick it where the sun don't shine, because we know it's just a load of crap.
It is. It completely is. And it just makes me sad. All of those school kids, all those kids who got those Fs on their science papers, it was all for naught.
And there probably were some brilliant kids out there that actually gave truths when they were told, nope, you're wrong, Johnny.
Right.
F.
That really messes with one's their sense of self. It's horrible.
Exactly. But see, it's not really about critical thinking or anything. It's about compliance.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, following along, being one of the sheeple. Again, don't stray too far from the zombie herd.
Right.
Get you into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Unknown group of humans settled the Faroe Islands before the Vikings. And the Faroe Islands, in case you don't know, lie between Scotland and Iceland. And so, who were these beings that settled these islands? And, I'm sure they're glad for the Gulf Stream, because it does make that area habitable. If it does shut off, it's not going to be very nice up there. It's going to turn very, very cold very, very quick. But again, that history that keeps getting let out, people were here at 500 AD, probably even farther back than that. And who were they? So they're saying, well, must have been Celts that maybe took off and went out there. And it's interesting too, as we get more DNA and you find things that don't make sense. How many of you guys have had 23andMe done and gotten back results that just don't make any sense, that your parents must be lying,
mm-hmm.
telling you where you came from, where your body came from? Again, it's just a vehicle. None of it makes sense. And, again, we had much more advanced civilizations here than they want us to know. And we go through these cycles of disaster that reset the population very, very much more often than we were led to think. Here they're talking about Neanderthals setting fires and changing ecosystems 125,000 years ago. There's actually people of a fundamentalist mindset that believe that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. 6,000 years old. It literally, there's people that actually believe that. And, again, it's sad how the conditioning can get to be so extreme when there's so much evidence. And again, this is what calcified pineal glands lead to. They lead to zombies. Mm-hmm. People that don't have the ability to perceive things for themselves. And that leads to persecution of those that do. And that has happened time and time and time again. And, it's just so sad to see the relics of that. And as people wake up, often, as we wake up, we think we've discovered the pinnacle, but then we realize in time that we didn't. There's always more knowledge. There's always more to uncover. And once we allow ourselves to get, in a fixed position where we're unwilling to bend our belief system or to adopt a new belief system or to just expand our horizons because we want to, stay at a certain point as far as belief systems go, then truly we're going to go extinct in a mental way.
Right, and there's not going to be any further places to go. But that's what they want. They want total control. And anybody who thinks outside the box, not only are they going to get reprimanded by other powers, they'll get reprimanded, unfortunately, by their own friends, by their own peers. And that's just unfortunate. People should be allowed and able to think different thoughts, to have different ideas. That's the kind of melting pot information that makes the world a beautiful place.
So Neanderthals used fire to keep landscapes open. And, when I first moved to Florida and I saw constant lots on fire and stuff, and you wonder what they're doing. And, a lot of times they'll use fire to clear areas instead of going in and cutting things down. They'll just kind of burn them down. Well, Neanderthals did that too 125,000 years ago. But as we've shared, Neanderthals and Denisovans are not what you think. They were actually bigger and stronger than us. They had larger brains than us, and they were much more harmonious and understood being part of the earth and living in a symbiotic relationship with the earth, which leads us into this. And we see out of RT, witches executed over 300 years ago are going to be posthumously pardoned.
Oh, that's nice.
In other words, you know what? Maybe we were wrong and they weren't witches and they were killed in error. Maybe people just had grudges against certain people. Maybe the powers that be didn't want people that had psychic, intuitive abilities, knowledge of herbs and how to heal with things, contrary to what is used today. Maybe people that were really in tune with the earth that actually could see things that we call nature spirits and understood that there were a lot of beings, conscious beings alive around us all the time that they could sense, but that the powers that be didn't want people recognizing and sensing. And so they took it as an opportunity by simply saying, burn the witch, right? Yeah, thousands of people, mostly women and girls, 85% in fact, they say, were accused of witchcraft in Scotland. This is just talking about Scotland, hundreds of years ago. Well, they are set to be pardoned.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Following a 2-year-long campaign by the Witches of Scotland activist group. The women's alleged crimes were reported as varied as causing hangovers. It wasn't the 3 bottles of rum. No, it was a witch that did that.
Let's not take responsibility.
She led me to the rum. She put a curse on me that took me right to the rum.
She did.
Yes, that's the excuses go. Oh yeah, meeting with the devil. Ooh, did they meet with the Pope?
Ouch!
I knew it wasn't Soros around then or Hillary. But, hey, maybe it was a meeting, depending on the year. It could have been a meeting with King James himself. King James Bible, King James, head of all the Masonic lodges, the secret society insider himself that gave us the King James Bible. Yeah, this is the part of the great uncovering. So, thousands of people executed between 1563 and 1736. Again, 85% were female. Yeah, so this was done through a bill, and they're going to apologize. Pardon and apologize and memorialize these poor people that were killed in one of the worst ways possible. As you know, fire is one of the most painful ways to go. Absolutely brutal. But this is the legacy of the church. And, some of our family members have mentioned, maybe you don't want to speak so much out against this, but I can't help it because it's in me. It's in my DNA and it's in my past lives. And, knowing that in past lives, I've done the same thing I'm doing right now, which is trying to expose it and then knowing, the outcome and being able to remember the outcome when the powers that be had gotten control of me in past lives. So obviously, you're going to want to speak up against the atrocities because the atrocities just morph. They just change. They change shape. They change form. But it's done basically by the same entities, the same power structures with the same purpose. And think about this. There was a comment by one of kind of like a family member that comes and goes. And just made a comment that felt very derogatory using the word pagan. And it just let me know, again, somebody's really in a stuck mindset and doesn't understand the bigger picture. And, what exactly is pagan? Because, again, words change. Like if we listen to somebody in 1450 speaking English, we wouldn't understand a damn thing they're saying. How about 1200? You wouldn't know anything that they're saying, and even today, if you go to a pub in the UK and you're from the US of A, you might have some language differences going on there. But words' meanings change over time. And then, of course, when we have the book burnings from Alexandria, the great library of Alexandria in Egypt, that was destroyed with such works that perhaps gave us much more of an inkling of what society was like before the Kali Yuga. And we have the cyber book burnings going on now. And again, recognize the internet itself is a tool of the powers that be. Everything gets revised. And so, when we talk about pagan, one of the meanings of it is anybody that's not a Christian, Jew, or Muslim. So a heathen. Now, a heathen comes from hearth, which just means those people that, the poor people that live out in the woods, that, gather around fires and are, living in nature. And what could also mean somebody observing a polytheistic religion, such as the ancient Romans and Greeks, or basically anybody anywhere in the globe pre-Abrahamic tradition.
Right. Somebody who's not buying into the system.
Yes. A member of the religious, spiritual, or cultural community based on the worship of nature or of the earth, neo-pagan. So, basically anybody that's not of the Abrahamic tradition. And, again, I included, a couple different ones so you could see any other religion other than the Abrahamic tradition basically is what it means. So if you're not one of us, you're one of them. Mm-hmm. And if you're not one of us, then you could be a danger. And thus we have the persecution of the witches. How about the 100 million or so indigenous people of North and South America? Were they not basically pagan? Yeah. Pretty much. How about the Australian Aborigines? Yeah. How about everybody over in Africa? Yeah. So what you're talking about is anybody before the system got a hold of them. Mm-hmm. Pretty much, when you get down to it, because every indigenous culture has more of a shamanic point of view.
Oh, yeah. And they understand very much how to heal using what the earth offers, what the mother offers, and they understand how to, grow and expand outside of the system. And I don't think the system really wants people to show the way how to do these things, because then their whole structure starts to collapse.
So if we look at, demon, the word demon, which, obviously is a dark spiritual entity, something scary, something horrible. And we do recognize that, the origins of the word has its origins in the Greek daemon, and a daemon is a semi-divine spirit. It says here, usually created when a noble person or a hero dies. These beings act as a go-between for gods and mortals, delivering divine messages and blessings to mortals or reporting bad behavior to the gods. And daemons are described as both air and earth spirits. In some texts, they're a swarm of 30,000 magnificent beings filling the skies between the mortal world and the divine world. So they take something that was originally thought to be a benevolent being, and this gets into more of the mythology later on, which you might find very interesting because it gets into the time of Cronus, the leader of the Titans. We get into the battle of the Titans against the elder gods. Well, Kronos, when he ruled the earth, he created a golden race of men. Although these men were mortal, they lived much like the gods. It's interesting because there's Chinese legends that go along the same lines, very much so. They say there was a time when mankind was very much just like the gods. And this is the golden age, which we will be heading back. Well, we are heading back in that direction. We have to go through a couple ages before we get there. But we see, men, although they were mortal, they lived much like the gods, with wonderful strength, merry feasts, and wise, pure hearts. When one of these golden men passed away, he became a daemon and continued to wander the earth, enjoying its blessings and watching over its future generations. Then we look to the book of Enoch, right? We get Genesis 6, which talks about giants in a negative light. And yes, there were, negative, we could view them as negative giants, but there were also some that were not really negative. But everything gets lumped in the biblical way into Nephilim, into fallen angels. And again, what is an angel? Well, original, it means a messenger. A messenger. That's the original word in Greek, again, is angelos, which means messenger. Thought to be a messenger of God. As we've shared with you guys, everything is ultimately just a soul. And, they have different forms and different functions depending on what you want, what you desire. So can a being be a human and then desire and want to be an angel? Yes. And could an angel decide that it wants to be a human? Yes. The Abrahamic way of looking things is the controller's way. And I know that that rubs some people in a very wrong light, but it's the fact that we, so to speak, live under Satan's law. That's Satan being the adversary. And the adversary ultimately are human beings of some bloodlines really working under non-human beings. And in order to subject human beings to everything that we see, create loosh, which is, again, an energetic form of food for certain entities that actually feed off of nonstop warfare, negative thoughts, negative intentions, and negative acts and deeds, trauma. There are beings that is their food. So the daemons had an important role during the reign of Kronos. Kronos recognized that humans are always susceptible to corruption when they are placed in positions of power. Well, power does tend to corrupt, but in the Golden Age, it's a different thing, and we did get that even in the Silver Age, there is some possibility for the dark power to influence certain individuals, and it's only really in the Golden Age that becomes just a memory, which is a beautiful thing. Otherwise, yeah, we do have to consistently have our guard up, because yes, the adversary to humanity and to all that is basically striving to work its way back to source, the true source, ultimately through this great adventure that we call our lives, because we do live more than one life as well. All those are understanding the symbiotic relationship of themselves with their environment and everything around them. So there's just this innate desire to do good more than do evil. And we've gotten from the guides, again, what we feel is that most people have that inherent desire to do good. It's really the fact that the system corrupts, and we have all sorts of negative energies that we're constantly bombarded with all the time in the airwaves around us, things we can't even see.
Well, they function very much like that, on things that we can't see, things that we don't understand. Why do you think that they give us our free education? It's so that they can control us freely, and it doesn't cost anything to them. They just have to make sure, every child receives their free education. And then it's just awful.
I want to just cross that word out and say indoctrination.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we could even go a little bit more and say brainwashing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see, and you think, and many people have gotten their hands on a Book of Enoch and think, I know it now. Oh, it's all the fallen angels. Da 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 da. Again, it's a total misperception. It's another red herring that's put out there, and people think they got it. There are people that are out there, they're trying to figure out what day the rapture is coming. Well, again, all these things are out there to be red herrings, to get us putting our time, effort, energy, and focus into things that ultimately are placed there by the system itself. I think that 1984, the book and the movie did a good job when the person that we take to be the protagonist, who the story is all about, gets handed this book by an insider. And it tells the whole story about what's really going on here. And then, he ends up being betrayed by that insider, because did the insider write the book? Yes, the insider wrote the book. But the book is part of the entrapment. The book is part of the entrapment. Why, when they get sworn in, if I'm sure there's many there that feel that certain presidents are what they would call demonic, dark, under the control of the darkness. Some might even think that some of them are very anti-Christ themselves. Why do they have a big smile when they put their hand on a particular book and take their oath? They don't burst into fire.
Mm-mm.
Why is that book everywhere? Why is it in every hotel room, everywhere you go? Look deeper. look into the real origins, and again, recognize that after that book was basically founded, everything else that could have led down a different rabbit hole was burned. Because as we've shared, that's not the message of Yeshua. And, still we see all these good-hearted but misguided souls that saying, Jesus is the only way. Jesus wasn't his name, And, again, who was he? Again, he was, what we could call a great teacher, a guru. Some might want to view it as an ascended master, a benevolent being, a wonderful being, and an amazing, giving, loving being that was showing us the way is through the heart chakra. That's the connection between the upper realm and where we are right now. Interesting, too, when we look at this, besides recognizing that this is kind of the inverse in some ways of the Book of Enoch. Now, if the Book of Enoch was true, because it does say that these fallen angels are imprisoned until the end of days will be let loose. Well, if you look at history, all of history, it's always nonstop warfare. It's always nonstop atrocities. There's been no time when the dark forces in this era that we find ourselves in have not been in control. So right there, that tells you something's wrong. And some will say that, well, when the Israelites came to Canaan and they saw that they were like fleas before them, oh, well, that's the offspring of the Nephilim. They're evil, so they had to go exterminate them. Again, that is the controllers giving you that information. As they thought that the Native Americans in North and South America, they called them savages, but who were the real savages?
Look what they did to them. Who is the real savage?
So when then we look at this again, it's talking about a golden age, a golden race. Well, that again goes perfectly in line with the Satya Yuga. This goes perfectly in line with everything we learn, from the Vedic point of view of, recognizing we've been in the Kali Yuga. So the Kali Yuga, the darkness is dominant. And the Dwapara, it starts to fade. And so we're right now, we're stepping into the Dwapara where it's starting to fade. And then we go into the Treta and then the Satya. And we do change. Our abilities come online. We actually have pineal glands that are working and no longer being calcified by the slave masters. And so we can perceive and know and not just rely on the left brain. Every time we get these recommendations, you gotta watch this, and we look and we see somebody that's stating things from a left-brained point of view, and we know they don't know. They just don't know. They're just going off of what they've gathered as far as information, as far as looking at others' sources without looking within. And so they might have some pieces of the puzzle correct, but be totally off in others. If you look to many channels that are talking and saying, that many of these beings are Anunnaki gods, and then they put beings like Lakshmi and Lil and Enki, and you couldn't get farther apart. They're so different. They have nothing to do with each other. And to me, again, that just shows, basically it's left-brained, and there's no intuition, there's no knowing, there's no gnosis there. It's trying to put the puzzle pieces together, but it's like the blind person and reaching out, not being able to use tactile sense, not being able to use the ears, which get more developed when we have one of our other senses gone. Like if we lose our vision, our hearing might get stronger. Our ability to even sense and feel things might get better. Our smell might get better. But taking those other senses away so somebody doesn't have the ability to really to know. Knowing is everything, and that can only come from going within and developing your abilities.
Which takes time.
It does take time, but in these times, everything is changed. So many things are absolute misperceptions, complete misperceptions. And, many people just look at things in a negative light because they're indoctrinated to look at things in a negative light.
Absolutely. It's, again, you can just keep tracing it right back to the control system. So hopefully we're starting to understand now that things are not as we have been taught since we were really small children, and people are starting to feel safe enough to step outside of what they think that they knew all of their lives. What they think has kept them safe has actually really limited them.
Very, very much so. And so, this gets into some different traditions, like a pre-Christian Norse spirituality, Druidism as well, Egyptian paganism. So, again, when you look at polytheism, what are we really saying too? Because ultimately there's one source, and that source lies within everything. So even when you were looking at these beings that have been called gods, or maybe they are called devas, or maybe some are viewed as daemons. Again, there's all different sorts of beings. Some are just simply more ancient souls that have, been in existence eons longer. So they've kind of done everything we're doing. And I'll give you guys the links so you could venture and take a look. And again, we're not necessarily saying any belief system. Just expose yourself and then sort what feels right and throw out what doesn't feel right. Because again, it's all part of the process of being unprogrammed.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have all been programmed at birth. Programmed in so many ways. Programmed to view anybody in a different country as being lesser than us, right? And I still see all these politicians talking about, I'm a patriot, I'm a patriot. Well, be patriotic about humanity in general. Be patriotic about non-humanity. When you get exposed to beings, and there will be benevolent beings that are not human, that do interact with us in the future, and many are interacting with us right now, and they're not human, but they're benevolent. So, perhaps be patriotic about life in general.
Absolutely. Be patriotic about people being able to explore who they are, why they came here, because it's all about exploration and experiences. And it's like they try to just keep us in this little box. So we're only allowed to explore these four corners and what's above and what's below in a limited way.
So, as this article says, word pagan has different meanings over the centuries. Yes, it's totally changed. Everything is totally changed because right now, as we could tell, we're basically slowly but surely being totally put under control. And this kind of says it all. One thing that most pagans have in common as far as paganism beliefs is a reverence and a deep love for Mother Nature. Oh, God forbid.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I've left comments on, certain YouTube things about healing Mother Earth, and then somebody turned around and says something really nasty about being a New Ager and going back to the Abrahamic religions and how they're sick and tired of hearing all this stuff. And that just really makes me sad. It makes me not want to comment at all.
Well, that's the point, though. They don't want you commenting. And when we talk about, New Age, and yeah, every single movement ends up getting infiltrated by the powers that be. They always infiltrate. They infiltrate everything. It's part of their control mechanism. So, this goes to number 2, the old ways. The New Age is the golden age beliefs. It's the old ways, that the stuff that when we were not under the control of the controllers. So they don't realize, it's just pure ignorance that they don't realize that what they're espousing is truly, they are promoting the belief system of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And they think they're doing the opposite. But that's because of the indoctrination and the brainwashing. And, it's sad, but it's true that they don't understand that they are the ones that are brainwashed.
Right. And, I think the scary part for me runs into when people are thinking that they're acting on their own best knowledge and their own best learning. They're doing their very, very best in their heart. So they are very determined about what they think and what they believe to be true. That concerns me there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think kind of like the reason I want to release people and have people understand that they are free from this system if they wish to be is, I guess in my own way, I've been hurt by people that are stuck in the system who don't understand me.
Well, yeah, because they are the ones that burn the witches.
Yeah.
This is the whole thing. They are the ones that man the ships of the conquistadors and sail out to the Americas to what? To bring the heathen to the true faith, to convert the pagans, to convert the savages. But in reality, what are they doing? They're just all about control, all about money, all about greed, all about their own power. And, they're, again, part of the problem and not part of the cure. And yet they're brainwashed into thinking that they're doing good.
Right.
When we look to all the different ancient structures on the planet, and we could look to Pumapunku, and we could look to all these different structures that are in alignment with the seasons and the solstice. It shows that in ages past there was a high technology and an understanding that there were certain times of the year when we could be able to reach out to our loved ones that have passed on and connect to the earth energies and the energies of the Devic realm in reality. So the winter solstice, we're approaching it. Sun reaches its maximum annual southern declination on December 21st in the constellation of Sagittarius. Is the longest day of the year over the southern hemisphere, but the shortest day over the northern. On this day, the sun stands still at its southern extreme, and thus it is called the solstice. A Latin word literally means the sun stands. And, this is the timing. And it was interesting because we have two messages we're going to play for you guys. Again, all the ancient world understood the significance of certain times of the year, because again, everything is about energy. The stars, the planets, they're living beings, they're conscious beings, and in a different density, they're having lives like us right now. As we've talked about the microbiome inside you, with trillions of beings that view you as the entire universe. Did you recognize that you are a universe? It's written, ye are gods. Fascinating stuff. And then so many of our rituals come from quote unquote pagan ways because they're deep seated and they do bring a joy, a certain joy. There's I think a certain little knowing in us, a remembrance of golden ages in the past.
Right, a time when our hearts were truly connected, our heart chakras were connected to one another and to the mother.
So people, and believe me, I've been all through it. I went through all that indoctrination, and I never felt it was accurate, but I still went all through it. And I always knew it was off, and I always knew it was a false belief system. But I still went through it because I had to. It was just part of the training for this particular life. And in that, then they view all this in a negative light, saying, the Christmas tree, you shouldn't have a Christmas tree because it's actually a pagan tradition. And we've gotten from Yeshua that he was born in the spring. He wasn't born this time of year, and he wasn't born in the manger again. And it was actually his brother, his twin brother Thomas, that was the one that was crucified, not him. So we could see that, so many things, again, that were given and are just traditions to, the masses to celebrate are based on falsities, and inaccuracies historically. But then there are remnants of these traditions that still kind of resonate with us. And I'll give you guys all the links. It's important that we recognize the indoctrination because we're breaking free. This time period is a time to break free. And we have to break free geopolitically. We have to break free mentally and emotionally, and we have to purge our traumas that have been caused by the system itself purposely to keep us locked into a lower vibrational frequency. And so, I do want to play two messages. One of them is coming from the Galactic Federation, from Laurel, who's also on the Pleiadian High Council, and I found it interesting.
Namaste.
And just to share with you guys, this is Cindy basically going into a full trance channel. And usually what I do to call them forth is just simply say namaste after doing some mantras.
Namaste.
How are you?
We are preparing for your winter solstice. We have much to do yet. It is a time for transformation, time for re-evaluating one's position in the cosmos, and possibly making changes if there are any changes needed. This takes much inner work, inner understanding, and cooperation with the higher self to show you what needs to be realigned. And we are working on this.
That's very beautiful and interesting. Some people have perhaps a misperception about so-called pagan, quote-unquote, beliefs, as so many in ancient times, and many do today still, pay attention to the cycles of nature, pay attention to the passing of the seasons, the equinoxes, the solstices. Is this part of the things that you pay attention to, say, in the Galactic Federation or in the Pleiades?
Yes, we utilize the cycles and use them for our benefit. We get the most out of them because we pay attention to them. They are very important. Many feel the winter solstice is the most important one to make alignments with one's soul, to make alignments with other entities if you wish to integrate anything into your life or into your growth. This is the time to do this now. It is a very beautiful thing that is not given much attention on your planet, but in the stars and for the gods, it is a time to recognize the self and your importance in the circle of life. We all want to give our best while we are here incarnated. We want to do the best job possible. Sometimes you might have to realign yourself if you go astray. Many times it is also a time for forgiveness and understanding for those who you feel might not be in their best interest. It might help to realign yourselves with other missions in life and make sure you're making the most of your incarnation. This is not taught as much on your planet as it is taught in nature and observed mostly in nature.
And of course, this has all to do with the Earth's cycles. So these cycles on other planets, in other solar systems, would be different.
They would be somewhat different, yet the same, because once again, it has a cyclical nature, so everything is being done. Everything is being done at once, yet individually. And these cycles are most important parts of our incarnations. We are taught to utilize them to the highest degree. We are taught to incorporate them into our lives, even in our daily lives. We can utilize these cycles. It continues to go back to as above, so below. These are the things we plan our incarnations with. It is much like on your planet you celebrate a new year and you make a resolution. It is very similar to that, except we use the cycles.
That was very interesting. Is there anything else that you want to share that's of importance along those lines of thinking?
We do hope that you will utilize this time wisely. This is a time when loved ones are able to reconnect with those whom may have passed out of body. It is a time to remember them, reconnect with them, and heal any wounds that might still exist. For this is a time that we all use for healing our emotional woes. This is very important to reconnect with your loved ones who have passed and bring resolve to any issues that you feel did not have closure. This is the time when emotionally you can connect with them and resolve any of these issues so that you both can move forward. It is most important to do this with your loved ones whom are out of body. This assists them in their afterlife, and they're moving on, and it assists you in your life in moving on. Use this time wisely. We are all given this time as a gift. It is most important to treat it with much respect and love and kindness and understanding, for everything in its own way is a kind of entity, is a kind of being. Some people do not define these moments in life as entities or beings, but in some ways they are. They allow for growth and healing and moving on.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's absolutely beautiful. As far as the geopolitical situation,
Okay, so we're going to stop there on this one. And then we have another one that came through just a little bit later from the mothers. And again, the mothers is the group of our primary guides, pretty much, I guess you would say. Laurel, is part of the Galactic Federation, played in High Council. And the mothers are Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene and Lakshmi and Aset, Isis, and White Buffalo Calf Woman with Kuan Yin. And so they wanted to speak on this subject as well.
namaste.
And you're hearing rain coming down on the tin
It was
roof.
raining.
The mothers are wishing to come through.
And with a joyous heart, we always look forward to the mothers.
We're wishing to come through to reach those who want to honor the winter solstice. We wish to reach out and assist those who want to move their hearts into alignment with the planetary bodies in which they are from. We wish to assist also in this great awakening that is occurring on your planet. Many people are very confused, very hurt, and we wish to bring comfort to those who feel misunderstood or misled on your planet. There is a great divide happening on your planet right now. This divide is necessary. It is natural. Do not fear it. You are moving closer to your soul family. Sometimes this can bring anxiety and fear for We are all from an understanding that blood families should always be together, no matter what. However, soul families are very important and very valid. We all choose our journey. We all come down through specific means, through specific lines, so that we carry certain abilities, and then once we are here, we search for our soul family. It is a great time to move yourself into alignment to assist you in finding your soul family. This is one way to honor your highest self and your purpose for coming to this planet. There are many reasons beings wish to come into alignment, to move closer to oneness. We feel is a very purposeful meaning. We do ask that you reach out to your highest self, that you ask that all your blocks be removed. Anything that is keeping you from connecting with your highest self, you may ask that those blocks be removed. With your permission, we can remove them. There are many different ways in doing this. We wish for you to simply follow your heart. Follow the inner voice. Follow the inner voice. This will lead you to where you need to be. Some may make this process sound very complicated, but it is as simple as speaking your truth through the heart. Then you must be in a state of allowing, to allow those things to change around you so that you might connect with your highest self. We do hope that you find your way during this winter solstice. We are here to guide you. We are here to teach you. Sitting alone in a room with a candle, with intent, we can come and assist you. We are here to bring love, nurturing back to this planet and help move you into alignment. We do hope this will help you feel more whole, help you feel less alone. We just need you to be in a state of receptivity during this winter solstice.
So I hope you guys found that informative and interesting. And again, the mothers, that was Mother Mary speaking for the group of 6 that includes herself, Mary Magdalene, Set, Lakshmi, and Kuan Yin, and White Buffalo Calf Woman. And again, when you look to it, these beings are so much bigger than just their single incarnation that we might know of.
Mm-hmm. There's so much experience there. There's so much wisdom involved. There's so much love and kindness and understanding. And I really didn't realize how much emphasis went on the winter solstice as I have this year. So I will be doing all of these things. I'm going to, clean all of the energies that need to be cleansed out of my life, and then trust that everything is going to fall in order as it needs to. And that's not always an easy thing to do, because we tend to, as humans, want to control things. And if something looks bad or scary, boy, we want to stop it. But, we might be stopping something that we don't understand.
And as always, guys, thank you for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon, because we couldn't do it without you. Do check out Medicinal Foods. There's a link at the top of every video, and use the coupon code EEA, and it gets you a discount. It also supports the channel. May you guys be blessed with abundant love, light, peace, happiness, and true understanding, and may you be able to develop those intuitive abilities, which are going to be so important to bring true discernment in the times ahead. Namaste.
Namaste.